Some of us believe in spiritualism. Some of us believe in heavy handing. Some of us believe in understanding. Some of us believe in laying the rules on. Some of us believe in total freedom, but the children believe in friends. The children of the world. Every boy and girl, all they'll know is what we teach them. Most of us fail when we try to reach them. For the children believe in having friends. Children believe in friends. Children believe in having friends. Children believe in friends.
We say that unless Nixon commits himself between now and May 1st to total U.S. withdrawal of all forces, then we say that if the government of the United States does not stop the war, we intend to stop the government of the United States.
I suppose really the lives of our whole generation have just been a series of incredible surprises. And certainly when I was in Chicago with Judge Hoffman in the trial of Chicago 7, you know, I just had no idea that, you know, just a few years later I would be involved in, you know, in a very deep meditation and really believing that a breakthrough in human consciousness was going to be the solution to the problems of the world.
Rennie Davis learned politics in the street, not the State House. With bullhorn in hand, leading peace marches, and during the trial of the Chicago 7, hurrying from the courtroom on Friday afternoons to speak at protest rallies all over the country. He and a handful of others who shared his commitment to help end our involvement in the war in Vietnam had taken on the government. And whether you loved him for it or hoped to see him convicted of conspiracy charges, it was clear long before the final verdict who had won. An example to hundreds of thousands in the 60s for his political activism, Rennie Davis now talks of meditation and a breakthrough in human consciousness as solution to the world's problems. Though we may share his disillusionment with politics, we can be excused perhaps if we find his alternative hard to accept. Now, however, scientists and professionals trained in human behavior and the mind believe that we are on the threshold of a revolution in human consciousness. They point to those individuals who possess seemingly extraordinary powers as evidence that most of us use only a fraction of our human capability. Why is this the particular time in the history of man when we may realize these capabilities if they exist? Perhaps because of a surprising marriage of space-age Western technology with ancient Eastern spiritual techniques, buried in mystery for thousands of years.
Operating manual for Spaceship Earth. Hear all about those do's and don'ts. Operating manual for Spaceship Earth. Find out about those do's and don'ts. No more buildings. Air is the best thing that we can breathe. No more buildings to the river. Rivers of life, the blood in our veins. Operating manual for Spaceship Earth. Hear all about those do's and don'ts. Operating manual for Spaceship Earth. Find out about those do's and don'ts. Do be kind to your animal friends. You are the keeper of Earth Zoo. Do be kind to your vegetable friends. You are the gardener of Earth Garden. Operating manual for Spaceship Earth. Hear all about those do's and don'ts. Operating manual for Spaceship Earth. Find out about those do's and don'ts.
The serpent. In the Bible, of course, it was the embodiment of evil, of Satan. But in ancient Eastern scriptures, thousands of years before the Old Testament, the serpent was held in far greater esteem. Envisioned as lying coiled asleep at the base of the human spine, it was symbolic of the power of the universe, awaiting man's enlightened command. The individual who awakened his kundalini, or serpent fire, would begin a cosmic transformation of his human capabilities. Extraordinary powers and the wisdom of the universe would become his. The caduceus of Mercury, the symbol of medicine. Some scholars have long theorized that the staff of the caduceus represents the human spine, while the two snakes symbolize serpent fire. When one has awakened Kundalini, he must learn to control this incredibly powerful life energy, or it can destroy him. By the disciplined practice of secret techniques thousands of years old, one learns to direct the serpent fire up the spine through 7 little-known energy centers called chakras. The chakras were once thought to be strictly imaginary, since they are invisible to most people and, until recently, undetectable by scientific instruments. The individual who has mastered control of his Kundalini supposedly acquires extraordinary powers and an increasingly higher level of awareness, as symbolized by the wings of the caduceus, even eventually being able to leave the body at will. Rennie Davis, then, and millions of others who share his optimism, foresee a fundamental alteration in human consciousness, brought about by our very need for it now in this time of crisis. This awakening of human potential is to be basically the same as that attained throughout the ages by a few gifted individuals, psychics, visionaries, mystics, and saints. The predicted difference is that this tremendous resource can now be greatly amplified through the global communications media. What has been known for thousands of years to a handful of explorers in inner space will become territory settled by a new generation of pioneers. Among 2,000 people attending a Canadian Peace Festival near Montreal are 40 individuals about to participate in an ancient and rarely performed firewalking ceremony. The ritual has been preceded by a week of purification exercises centered around fasting and meditation. Its purpose, to demonstrate the power of man's mind when fear has been eliminated.
This firewalking, it's actually a ceremony that's conducted yearly as a demonstration of faith in the divine female principle by a Hindu sect in southern India. It is believed that once you step on the flames, you will not be burned. We planned this festival with these firewalkers and musicians. We had 40 Americans that walked across the fire, including an Anglican priest and a minister, and just all types of people, housewives, young people, long hair, short hair, it's just a whole cross-section. They started to have a week's preparation and 3 worships a day, vegetarian, pure food, and people are supposed to feel pure, think pure, and participate in this ceremony. You see, the religious people's explanation for how this works was divine grace. The scientist related to it through his own conditioning, and that is hypnotism or just self-will somehow protects the body and so forth. And the yogis explained it through the astral psychic body emitting a certain force that protects the body. Just before we walked across the coals, I thought, well, is this going to work or not? hard to believe that it was hot. I thought something was protecting our feet, or the ashes was insulating it. It was just a crunchy feeling, like walking on styrofoam balls, something like that. Then a reporter who was kind of skeptical went through the ropes, and he grabbed a handful of coals, and he burned his hands badly.
What is a guru? The guru is a man who knows all the answers to all the questions. He has realized supreme love, and he can know you better than you know yourself. What a marvelous thing if this is true.
I spent 10 years in Richmond, California, a town where I was raised, practicing law, being in politics, doing all those things that I'd learned as a child that an American was supposed to do in his community. Was elected to the city council and became a mayor of the town, became the chairman of the Democratic Central Committee, worked in presidential campaigns. And when we started out, there was a whole group of us that really felt that all we had to do was be positive and get out and do the job, and it was going to be all right. We really thought we could change everything by changing that which was outside of ourselves.
I left my work about 2.5 years ago because what I thought I wanted out of being an actress just wasn't there. I wasn't finding it. Actually, I left a number of things. I left my home, I left work, I left my marriage existence, and I started a search that had always been a part of me, but I'd been trying to fulfill it outside of myself.
After 10 years, the duality didn't go away. There was still me and them. There were either those, generally there were those people who were wanting to move forward and change things. Of course, the majority of the people were indifferent. And then there were those people who didn't want change and who were quite hostile to change, and I found myself becoming very hostile to them.
I looked at myself in the mirror and saw not the picture I'd always had of myself of David with his slingshot fighting against Goliath, but a really vicious, determined, hostile young man. All that hostility and that wrongness that had been faced with me in my life had been completely generated from myself. The only way to deal with the environment outside of myself was inside myself. It just became so crystal clear to me.
Finally, I went to India, where I met wonderful people, and I started to feel myself opening up and getting closer to whatever it was that I felt I was looking for, sort of a nebulous thing.
So I went to India in 1968. I sold all my toys and cars and house and all the various things you acquire, and went up in the mountains for a while and was with a Krishnamurti group and heard about a woman in Delhi who's a very well-known Sufi who's known for reading you and telling you who your guru is. And she told me immediately, and when I came into her presence, that I'd been wasting a lot of time, that I should go see Muktananda. I'd never heard of Muktananda before.
When I met Baba, I knew that search was over.
This man looked really tough, and he was whacking people in the back and getting them to line up and kind of moving around and poking people with his foot and going, oh, oh. Meantime, despite my thoughts, I could feel all this movement inside my body, inside my head, really thick, heavy, distinct movement, not subtle at all. When he would move his arms, it was as if that motion was going on right through me. He kind of stepped between a couple of musicians, made a little hop, and he landed in a full lotus on his couch, looking right at me. When he hit his chair, I hit paralysis. There were no more thoughts. My mind felt like it was buried in honey. I felt tremendous sweetness in my chest.
looked at him the first day or two, and I thought, this isn't so terrific. I mean, I don't see people levitating, but I loved his humor. That I loved. I loved his humor. But then I started to feel physically and vibrationally, I guess you could say, a higher repetition, a heightening. I started to get heat up my spine, and started to get a tremendous opening in my head. Now, like everybody else, I wanted the touch. I wanted to feel the touch on my body. That meant that I was getting it. But he looked at me the second day straight in the face. A half hour later, I was weeping, crying with joy, knowing and experiencing something I had wanted all my life. Knowing, not wondering or yearning or wanting, having it. Who one chooses to call guru, my guru, or whatever, is actually God is your guru. So, Swami Muktananda has given me something that gives me the direct channel to God. The direct experience with God, the personal, intimate experience with God.
He's like a cosmic tuning fork. He guides you to where that still place is inside yourself, and then you can sit in meditation. He can be 3,000 miles away and you can feel that way. His description is that the entire universe is made up of energy. He describes it very much as Einstein describes it. And we all give off energy. The thing is, our conscious thoughts, all of our thinking about past and future that goes on continuously, seems to act as a barrier between us experiencing that energy that's within ourselves. Since he's completely in tune with it, it goes through him absolutely clearly, and he's able to tune in other people.
He's given me something that is mine now. And all I have to do is to maintain it, which Baba says is just the meditation every day, which puts you in touch and throws more wood on the fire and makes the blaze greater, and once it's given to you, it's never taken away.
The purpose of life is to know the inner self and to live with a happy heart and to finally merge into the supreme truth.
The young people with shaved heads and top knots, whom many of us have self-consciously avoided on the streets of large cities all over the country, are devotees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. There are now more than 100 centers around the world where devotees live, worship, and support their unconventional way of life, a bold and joyous quest for higher consciousness.
Dr. Abraham Maslow, the father of humanistic psychology, has stated that singing and chanting and dancing creates a rhythm that stimulates or triggers self-realization in the individual. This has been a well-known fact to the yogis of India. In fact, the Hare Krishna movement is faithfully following the process called mantra meditation or Sankirtan yoga. It is a very great science, and after much study and discipline, one can come to the point of ecstasy, full ecstasy, that singing and dancing produces.
The whole universe is made up of energy. Religions, in declaring the existence of God, a supreme being or intelligence, are in effect saying that fundamental to energy is conscious energy, or consciousness. The Bible puts it this way: in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In Hindu scriptures, God is a supreme personality, named Krishna, and chanting his name enables one to fully commune with him.
The meaning of this Hare Krishna mantra is that I am just a part of a vast whole which is called Krishna or God, and that my function is to serve the whole. Singing and dancing the Hare Krishna mantra is a total awakening of the senses, the mind, the intelligence, all the faculties of the human being. One begins to experience spiritual reality all around him, within him, and outside. He is transformed. He goes on a transcendental plane beyond waking, dreaming, and sleeping, to a transcendental consciousness. And one eventually comes to actually experience God face to face.
To some, the new spiritual influence from the East is a threatening intrusion. They are alarmed when their children renounce their way of life and follow teachings which seem so alien. Could they have been brainwashed? Madonna Slavin's family turned their concern into dramatic action.
This isn't just a Hare Krishna devotee being kidnapped. It's a matter of religious persecution. She came out here with her fiancé. The family members requested that he remain in the car, that it was a family matter. He saw men grab her and pull her in. And he called the devotees and explained what happened back at our center in Los Angeles. He came back here with the police. They wouldn't let them in the house because they didn't have a search warrant. So by the time the devotees got out here, by the time the police did get out here with a search warrant, she was gone. And it's not that we're just saying one of our members is taken. This is an issue everyone should be concerned with. We're a minority religion, we're being persecuted.
Madonna Slavin escaped. Charged with false imprisonment, members of her family were released on a $100 bond. 2 professional deprogrammers were not apprehended.
Still believes that Madonna's been brainwashed.
That very definitely. They feel that she does not have her own will at all, and that she is under the mind control of the Krishna cult.
Apparently, there were people involved from other states who were brought in with respect to this attempt on Madonna Slavin, and apparently they're still at large.
Testifying before a Superior Court judge, Madonna charged that she had been kidnapped by her own family in an attempt to deprogram her, to change her religious beliefs.
I would just say that she's not in a very good psychological condition. She's vacillating extremely.
She doesn't know what she was...
She's vacillating extremely.
How was her mental attitude?
She sounded fine. She no difficulties at all. She was able to answer all the questions. She has phone numbers and names and license numbers memorized.
I have no objection to her religious beliefs at all. Only thing I object to is the psychological brainwashing techniques that were used on her to convert her to her beliefs.
You know, the charge that Madonna just sits around and chants all day and is brainwashed is, you know, ridiculous. Actually, the real people who should be examined in this brainwashing charge are the parents who have been brainwashed by the professionals to think that this is a proper legal approach to solving a problem.
Don't push against... All right, folks, stop and step up. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Clear the way now. Back, please. Clear the way now.
I can't say at this time.
Are you bitter about what you told the court that you were kidnapped now?
Yes, I was.
You want to press charges?
I don't know.
Take your statements over there, please. That's clear the way. Back off. Back off, everybody. You call it an assault.
I just want my legal rights, my God-given rights, and my rights given to me as an American citizen. Hare Krishna. We decided we would go over to the hospital and see my grandmother before she died. So when I walked over to the door, my family stood up and they started enclosing and around me. And then when I opened the door, then I was grabbed. They grabbed me by the shoulders, my brother and my brother-in-law, and they actually picked me up off the ground and put their hand over my mouth. But I pulled it down and I called out for Krishna. They threw me into the bottom of a van and then sat on me and covered my mouth so I couldn't make any noise. Afterwards, they said that although I cried out for Krishna, he didn't pick me up. But actually, I knew immediately that he had picked me up, and I was fully protected. The deprogrammer with the blonde hair said that she knew enough about brainwashing herself that she could make me break. And then she said how they kept Patty Hearst in a dark closet for 3 weeks without any food. And she mentioned the old Chinese torture of putting bamboo under the fingernails.
I feel very sorry for the slaves. I know what they're going through, and my heart really bleeds for them. They did what they thought was good. They had no legal means. They had no other recourse but to do what they did, and I'm not advocating kidnapping. There must be a better way, but parents get to the end of the rope sometime, and they don't know what else to do, and they love their children.
They even questioned why I was a vegetarian. They asked what I would do if they brought eggs into the room, if I would eat them or not. They wanted me to break my vows that I'd taken.
This is where the legal issue is of central importance. When you have an American prisoner of war in a North Korean prisoner of war camp who has been completely and successfully brainwashed, he will go through something very similar to a religious conversion, in a sense where he will make a declaration that my former capitalist way of life was worthless. I have now found the truth in communism, and it's a very similar phenomenon to a type of conversion experience that you will find among these cults.
They said that I didn't have any free will, but actually they were the ones who were trying to take away my free will. They were trying to convince me that I'm this body, that my only purpose was to enjoy this body.
2 weeks after her abduction, Madonna Slavin and Edward Walford were married in a traditional Hindu wedding ceremony attended by some 2,500 people. Later, $100 fines were suspended for members of her family after they pleaded no contest to misdemeanor charges of false imprisonment. To me, the search of the whole 60s, the activity of a whole generation in the 60s was really just a search for peace, to really try to find what are the root causes of war, of racism, of human suffering. And I think that, I think that whole period was really a search outside ourselves, a search in the external world. And I think we came to see that actually our own human mind is what is creating war, is what is creating separation, is what is creating our difficulties. And many, many people in this country are now sensing that, unless there's inner peace, we can't have peace outside. If there can't be peace of mind, we can't have peace on earth.
Peace in this world has become very strange for people. Peace in this universe has become an antique. And if we want to today receive and achieve this point of peace, we have to go to him who is known as perfect master. Now, why do they call me perfect master? See, if someone teaches you maths, someone teaches you English, if someone teaches you science, you call him maths master, English master, science master, respectively. Same way, I can teach people peace. Now, again, I have to tell this to people that I'm not prophet. I'm not a prophet. I'm just an ordinary human being with 2 legs, 2 eyes, and I work. And I voluntarily put myself here so that I can reveal this knowledge to people. I think because people need it. People have forgotten what this knowledge is. And I'm just teaching them perfectness, and that's why they call me perfect master.
This This rare footage traces the development of a highly publicized and controversial career. Of all the well-known gurus, the youngest, Guru Maharaj Ji, is easily the hardest for the skeptical Westerner to believe in, particularly in the light of publicity concerning his family's struggle for control of the organization which he nominally heads. What few people realize is that he was proclaimed perfect master and named head of the Divine Light Mission after his father's death. His father founded the worldwide organization in 1961 and died 5 years later when the boy was just 8 years old. He now claims millions of devotees around the world. Many of them, Rennie Davis included, have braved the ridicule of family and friends to follow this path to a new experience of consciousness.
The question has come up several times as to whether or not Guru Maharaj Ji is still in control of his Divine Light mission. Honestly, he has always been in control and always will be as far as his followers are concerned, because many things that were reported in the media were not reported correctly. Actually, under his direction, what's really happening is the people who are practicing this meditation are coming together in communities all over the world, and they're opening food co-ops, and they're starting medical clinics, and there are social service programs. For instance, here in America, there are 250 ongoing social service programs in prisons, in old folks' homes, in children's hospitals. Because whenever you are experiencing love, then it's something you want to share.
People think God is a man. People think God has got ears, nose, teeth, and he rises daily in the morning, toothbrushes, washes his mouth, and he's an old man also, so he makes his beard also, and all that people think. But no, God is energy. God is the perfect and pure energy, and that's why scientists say energy cannot be created and cannot be destroyed. There is a glorious sun, not the sun that you see in the sky, but a sun which is within ourselves, which is much brighter, much, much, much brighter than the sun you see in the sky. People try to search God outside. How can they get him? God is inside.
We all have concepts about how a holy man should be, you know, and we remember stories, you know. When I was growing up, I went to Sunday school in the Methodist Church, and they always made the point in Sunday school about how the people of Christ's time had sort of a concept that he would come as a great king. And when he came more according to the ways of that time and rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, you know, it was like everybody freaked out and it didn't fit people's concept. And now we have a concept about a holy man that goes sort of back 2,000 years, and he comes into the 20th century and he rides in airplanes and he drives in cars and he appears on television sets, and it doesn't fit our concepts. And we're beginning to see that perhaps the kind of, I don't know, the cosmic joke may be that this time he's come as a great king.
Strange how when people look for a guru, they think they must use a completely different method than what they use from everything else in life. This is very unreasonable. You must find out all you can about him. It's a great mistake to listen only to his disciples. You must also listen to what his critics have to say. Don't be afraid of it. Look at the guru straight in the eyes and ask him some direct questions, and make sure you get the answers. And don't be satisfied until you have the answer to your crucial question clearly and truthfully answered by the guru. Otherwise, don't follow him.
Baba, why does one need a guru?
गुरु की कितनी जरूरत होती है?
वो जो अपने जीवन में हम खुद ही से पाया नहीं गया उसको पाने के लिए.
To find whatever we aren't able to find by our own effort in our life.
The guru is a uniquely Eastern combination of father, teacher, and spiritual advisor. To his followers, human potential seems in him to have become a living example, which can be personally experienced.
feel that I needed a guru because Baba's given me a sense of peace and contentment that I've never been able to find before.
Well, I didn't think I needed a guru before I came here, but Baba's helped me to identify with the guru inside of me, and it's too late now.
I found an inability for myself to put it all together.
I must have a guru to find God.
My guru is a living lens through which the energy of my love is magnified.
He has given me life. This is it. I was dead and he gave me birth.
Will there be a time in one's life when he needs no guru?
जीवन में कोई ऐसा भी समय आता है कि जब गुरु की जरूरत नहीं रहती।
वो विदाउट गुरु और विदाउट टिकट रेलवे का फर्क ही है।
Says to be without a guru is like to travel in a train without a ticket.
If the flower has plenty of honey, should it send invitations to the bees? No. They will come by themselves. Thus came people from all over the globe.
One of the principal differences between spiritual teachers in the West and Indian gurus seems to lie in the matter of lineage. The centuries of tradition in spiritual training and practice embodied in Eastern mysticism. There, titles such as yogi, swami, and guru are not simply adopted and are not lightly bestowed. They are earned by years of disciplined practice. The spiritual figures who have visited the West represent only a fraction of those dedicated and powerful enough to be called by such names in their own lands. Sathya Sai Baba, a mysterious man of miracles, with a rapidly growing reputation and millions of followers around the world, still lives in the remote little Indian village where he was born. Sai Baba is considered by his followers not just a holy man, but an avatar, an incarnation of God in human form, as devout Christians believe Christ was. He is best known for his alleged possession of some incredible powers, the ability to materialize objects from thin air, to read minds and see into the future, to project his astral body anywhere in the world and beyond, to adopt other forms, and to heal by miraculous means. Perhaps hardest of all to accept is his alleged ability, in some cases, to bring one back from the dead. The development of so-called paranormal powers supposedly goes hand in hand with one's expansion of consciousness. Enlightened individuals, however, Sai Baba included, warn that to become infatuated with such powers is to become sidetracked from the path toward realizing one's fullest potential. Sai Baba refers to his feats as calling cards and says it is wrong to call them miracles. He preaches neither a specific religion nor worship of himself, but tries rather to help each person realize the divinity inherent within himself. I only prompt you to discover your own reality, he says.
The end of wisdom is freedom. The end of culture is perfection. The end of education is character. The end of knowledge is love, love, love.
Vibhuti, or sacred ash, a mysterious substance resembling ash, but with a sweetly pungent smell, has become, in effect, his trademark. He appears to be materializing it here. Vibhuti is reported to have been successfully prescribed for a multitude of ailments, from blindness to cancer. Many of the reports are extremely well documented. On this occasion, an important annual festival at his ashram, Sai Baba appears to materialize Vibhuti from a vase, as one of his few public miracles before thousands of devotees.
There are no many fathers, only one father. So we are all his children. That means we are all brothers and sisters. Whether it is black, white, Australian, American, whatever be the race, whatever be the religion, whatever be the color. It is that unity which is called yoga. Yoga is nothing new to the West. What the West was calling and is calling union or communion is yoga.
Yoga is the East's ancient science of the mind, a body of physical, mental, and spiritual techniques developed over many centuries to extend the range of human powers. Advanced yogis have gained such mastery over what we take for granted as physical needs that they have been buried alive for days at a time, going without food, water, and apparently even air. It would seem that they are virtually able to turn their bodies on and off at will. With their extraordinary powers, subjected frequently now to scientific scrutiny, they have prompted us to question seriously the traditional limits we have placed on man's abilities. The yoga which involves these extreme postures, or asanas, is called Hatha Yoga. For hundreds of thousands of Westerners, it has opened a door to the Eastern way of relating to life. Many, through its disciplines, actually learn to experience subtle states of consciousness whose existence they had only understood before. Swami Satchidananda founded the Integral Yoga Institute to teach a program which he calls a combination of all types of yoga.
When you go and clean the floor, collect the dust. Don't collect it and throw it away. Be gentle. When you collect it, take it gently. Tell the dust, my dear dust, I'm sorry, you are in the wrong place. See? That's communion with the dust.
During the summer solstice, extensive courses in Kundalini Yoga itself are offered by Yogi Bhajan, spiritual leader in the West for Sikhism, which began 500 years ago in India.
The type of yoga we teach is a Kundalini Yoga, the yoga of awareness, which can be scientifically explained. The known personality of the individual likes to experience its unknown potential.
I felt a kind of emptiness, a loss inside, and I needed something. And so I searched around to try to find something to fill that void.
So today the young man is seeking that experience of happiness within himself, and all the material world which he has around him could not give him that satisfaction.
For years I didn't search. I just knew that there was a God. That was just a fact to me. I didn't search for God in any particular way because I didn't know that you needed to search for God. Some people don't need to search for God. I did because I was too far away from the will of God within my own life. I was too far out of sync with the will.
And this is today the man is seeking. What is that what we call God? What is that in which we trust? What is that which has asked them to come here for a purpose of life, and they want to know their totality, their total potential, and their happiness in every way, everywhere. The Tantric Yoga, which is a white Tantric, in which we change the subconscious mind of the individual of his past experience, such as it is possible you may have been raised by your mother and you may have certain imaginations or certain handicaps for which you may be seeking a fulfillment through your wife. And because of that, your life may not be happy. But by virtue of this Tantric Yoga, the energy is so circulated that you started experiencing your own negativity and you start seeing it floating in your own conscious mind. And thus the barrier of the subconscious mind are clean, and you can start a healthy life in your own domestic life.
The meaning of yoga is union, and the yoga that we teach is largely a union of two bodies in one soul. And so we learn through many different ways how to become a true marriage, how to truly love each other, and to truly love the God that is within each other.
We keep working at it.
It's a little bit of work. Yoga
Yeah.
is not easy.
No.
Anybody who thinks that spiritual path is easy has a misconception.
By virtue of having a cozy home,
Please pick up your money from the bank tonight because we're not going to be open tomorrow. Please pick up the money from the bank that you deposited. We're not going to be open tomorrow.
could you run and shut up the system?
To be spiritual, you don't have to be austere and lead a celibate life. We believe in marriage. Yogi Ji has taught us that love is the experience of selflessness within oneself. Love isn't a two-way street, you know, it's one-way traffic. It's just between you and you if you love somebody. It doesn't have to do with whether they love you or what. You have to be willing to love somebody at all costs. The wedding ceremony is a 500-year-old ceremony. There are 4 commitments, 4 vows that the couples take. Walking the path of righteousness with each other, having patience for each other, having tolerance for each other, and living for each other rather than living with or at each other. What they're bowing to is the Word of God as they're accepting it into their beings and accepting to make that commitment.
The way to higher consciousness is considered lonely by many. Tantra Yoga offers a striking example to those who seek love as well as enlightenment in their lives. Tantra aims at a spiritual union of two souls through the joining of two lives, the fusion of two bodies. The Tantra partner is actually experienced as one's own self, and thus becomes a doorway to unity with all of nature.
There is a notion of vast proportion, and she flows within ourselves. To take dips daily. We dive in gaily. He knows who goes within himself.
How one meditates and what one experiences in this ancient technique of quieting the mind depend on the individual. Those who have practiced and studied it, however, from yogis thousands of years ago to scientists measuring its effect in the laboratory today, are convinced of its healthful benefits. As one learns to subdue the incessant drone and chatter of the mind, a glimmer of intuition begins to emerge. Visionaries have said that this faculty is as superior to rational thought as thinking is to the instincts of animals. Is it a message from another world, a teaching from a higher dimension of being, or a voice from a more subtle, perhaps divine part of our own selves?
When I was sitting in a darshan room and Baba was giving the darshan, he spoke to an American man who was there, and he said to him, I was doing this whole thing, the crying and the making noises and everything, and Baba told him that I had intense Shakti. I was going through more of a cleaning out of stresses from the nervous system. And through these cleaning out of these stresses, I function better from day to day. As long as they're there, I can't function properly. Not everybody is going to experience it this way. Some people experience it in a subtle level. Some people see light. Some people see faces. Some people just experience inner joy and inner happiness inside. And not everybody goes through this. So, I mean, a lot of people that I've come in contact that have seen this have really gotten frightened. And it bothers me to see that they get frightened. This is not tremendous suffering. This is just the cleaning out of my impurities. And by going through this, I hope someday that I'll know who I am, who I really am, and that I'll be able to know who God is, and realize God not on the intellectual level, but realize Him by experiencing Him, and end my karma.
You know how a little baby comes into the world and their face is just completely like open and shining and just everything is so incredibly joyous? Well, this meditation is like that. I mean, it just puts you in, it's so incredible. It's magic. It's like being in love all of the time. And you can actually work in the world. You can be in a very intense situation. You can be on a subway in New York City. You can be, you know, in a screaming battleground, and yet you're just connected to a very, very pure and beautiful place inside, and you're just completely open to life, and it's really beautiful.
Anyone who can think can meditate. A man who comes worried and anxious, 5-10 minutes of instruction, he says, Thank you very much. I didn't know it was so simple. This deep rest automatically eliminates stresses and strains.
The living room, not the ascetic's cave, is where men and women today are beginning to explore a new frontier, the universe within themselves. Transcendental meditation is an ancient technique taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi as part of his science of creative intelligence. Distinct from other forms of meditation and practiced by more people than any other technique, it has received considerable scientific interest for its unique state of restful alertness. Some scientists believe that this state may actually be a fourth state of consciousness, along with wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep.
Transcendental meditation is a technique whereby we can guide our attention in the reverse order. The thought arises from within, and we can grab the thought on the conscious thinking level and then go back on the same channel through which it is coming up. Very naturally our awareness goes deep and goes beyond the thought, and attention becomes pure awareness. Principle of meditation is the principle of retiring. One closes the eyes and brings the attention to that state of unity within. This inward stroke of meditation makes the mind conversant with the quality of that basic value of life. Outward stroke of meditation brings that value out into the field of action. The resistance to unfoldment of pure consciousness is like the clouds hiding the sun. The sun is shining, it's there. Those resistances have to go, and these resistances are stresses and strains. So when the mind is opening to that unbounded pure awareness, the field of pure intelligence, simultaneously the body is losing stresses and strains. As the mental activity becomes more refined, breathing becomes more refined, and with this metabolic rate becomes more refined, becomes less and less. The whole system receives deep rest. If someone says, I don't have time to meditate, that means he doesn't have time to collect his mind, to enrich his mind, to make the mind full of liveliness. We go in to come out. It's just like we go to the bank to come out into the market. And 5 minutes going to the bank is worthwhile to be full day in the market. If someone says, I have so many appointments in the market, I don't have time to go to the bank, he has to be cautioned.
TM is being recognized in this country in government as well as in the marketplace.
But it's hard to get all of the, the excitement, if you will, out of your mind and get it quiet. And how do you go about doing that? Do you have a special technique?
Yes, this transcendental meditation is just that in a very natural way, mind settles down.
The Maharishi is here today to extend his greetings to the Illinois House of Representatives in appreciation for the passage of House Resolution 677. As you will recall, that resolution recognized and recommended the investigation by people throughout Illinois on the contributions of the science of creative intelligence and transcendental meditation. It is my pleasure to present to you a man of love and peace, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
If we look back to the history of government, every new government comes in every generation with a great aspiration, brings a new hope for something new which the previous generations have not accomplished. But history tells us No government in the history of all governments throughout the ages has succeeded in creating a society free from problems. We can free 9 million people of the state from problems of drug abuse, crime, delinquencies, problems in education, problems in health. By now, for the last 15 years, by now, enough data is available to prove that this works.
The most important thing, of course, is not to make the American suddenly Indianized, but to make the American a better American, to make the businessman a better businessman, to make the housewife a better housewife. It isn't any great achievement for the American to put on Indian clothes and Indian name and go to India. That doesn't solve the problem, really. It, in fact, poses greater problems. The secret is to apply the universal content of Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy and make the American better capable of coping with life right here where he is, you see.
What is Father here for? He is nothing but a connecting link in nature. That is all that he is. Father is here to put you in touch with the only master you have ever had and ever will have. It is not outside yourself. Your only master sits within you.
Father Yod, as Jim Baker, was one of the most highly decorated Marine raiders during World War II. He shot down 13 Japanese planes during the sinking of the USS Chicago and capitalized on his experience teaching judo to the raiders by becoming world heavyweight judo champion in 1947. Hollywood asked him to come west to play Tarzan, but he opened Los Angeles' first organic restaurant instead. A follower for 9 months of Yogi Bhajan, he decided to become a spiritual leader himself upon growing disillusioned by what he considered a serious lack of father figures in this country.
By chanting his name in 2 great cycles in that manner, we complete a circle. We close the energies between the negative and the positive forces. We bring pressure to bear upon the solar plexus, for there is spiritual mind. Man has 7 component body parts: his physical body, his pranic body, his etheric body, his subconscious body, his conscious body, his spiritual mind and spirit. Ultimately, man is spirit. Man is out of balance now. That is the problem. Bring the body into balance. Man has but to stand, assume the star exercise, or sit with the 2 knee points out to the points of the star. Extend the arms to the side. Left hand up, right hand down.
As Father Yod, Jim Baker founded the Brotherhood of the Source, which supported itself through the operation of a vegetarian restaurant. Then most members of the Source moved to Hawaii to escape the nuclear ravages of an impending Third World War, predicted, they believed, by the Great Pyramid of Egypt. It was a prediction Father Yod would never experience. His inspirational leadership would outlive the man himself.
In this bottom photograph, Yehoah is getting ready to go off the cliff, and it's 1,300 feet up. All of a sudden, the wind just stopped, and the kite nosedived, and he pulled out of the nosedive and recovered and circled out over the ocean. Then he came back in and landed in a little camp of native Hawaiians. We raced down the mountain, and when we got there, this is what he looked like. The doctor said, there's nothing the matter. He's going to be fine in a couple days. There was nothing the matter physically with him.
The cause of death was listed as unknown. They did the autopsy. There was no broken bones. There was no internal hemorrhage. There was nothing. Because his kundalini was, it was released, and he left the body spiritually.
It was just the time for him to leave the body. And so that was what happened. Yehoah left 13 women in charge of running the family, as the mothers of the family. And we are here now carrying out his word to the letter.
Are there other worlds more highly evolved than our own? Do we, as many alleged psychics claim, have guardians or spirit guides watching over our potentially combustible planet?
I am the light of them in equity be now. I am the light of them, the light alone of God. I am the light of them in mighty of the power. I am the light of shining every hour. I am the light of them, the light of them. I am the living power, bringing everyone.
When I was a very small child, in fact, my first memory was a search for reality, an awareness that there was a reality and there was a world of illusion. And I felt that I had to penetrate that world of illusion to find what was real. And I searched in all of the various churches. I sought people, I asked questions, and I found that no one could really define reality. I knew that I had to go within. When I went within, I had memories of other lives, of a previous existence of the soul on earth and in other dimensions beyond the earth. I had memories of being with beings who did not resemble the beings that were around me. And I came to know later that some of these were a part of the historical stream of life on this planet, and some did not resemble any life that has ever been seen here. And so I knew that there was an existence beyond this plane, and I had to find it. I was contacted one day when I was a student in college at Boston University. As I was walking through the park, I met the master, El Moria. He appeared to me in my third eye, and I saw him as clearly as I'm seeing you. And he gave me directions for being a messenger, as it were, as the Greeks understood, a messenger of the gods.
That all in honor challenge the poison, the pollutions, and the perversions of energies that come from far-off worlds and that are for the fulfillment of light.
Elizabeth Clare Prophet is the head of a spiritual movement called the Summit Lighthouse, whose stated purpose is to transmit the teachings of ascended masters, immortal beings who have mastered time and space and ascended from Earth to a higher dimension of being. From this vantage point, through messengers like Elizabeth Prophet, they supposedly dictate vital teachings to save humanity from destruction.
The law of cause and effect. As a man soweth, so shall he reap. Contaminate not other forces, but infiltrate with love. For love, all love, is the fulfillment of the law of being. So let that love deliver the mandate of cosmic counsel. Be free in love and let light reign for the freedom of the Aquarian age.
The transfer of cosmic consciousness which we just experienced was from the level of the Elohim who ensoul the fires of freedom for the Aquarian age. The Elohim are beings who have a cosmic consciousness, an awareness of life that is beyond our own. We can contact this level of awareness by meditation, by raising our energy field. In doing this, then, the Elohim superimpose the grid of their consciousness upon my own force field and aura, and I'm able to deliver in the spoken word the mental conceptions that are given to me by the Elohim who are called Arcturus and Victoria. They are lowering into the energy fields of mankind the desire for freedom, a higher understanding of freedom, and a liberation of certain energies of the soul whereby mankind in this age will be able to release new creativities, a new genius, advances in science, probes in outer space, probes in inner space, in the inner consciousness and being of man. our young people are looking for reality. They've come into an awareness that there are illusions. The Hindus call it Maya. There are planes of awareness that we can penetrate, planes beyond our own. And I really feel that young people want to know what is real in life and want to tether to eternal values. I think people in every profession who are the real artists and the real masters have an inner calling to pursue excellence in their field. And this is a way that I was born to. There's no other way of living but to pursue truth.
Thomas Jefferson, who was a great American guru in his own way, he had a very clear perception of a spiritual leader. He said he must be very sincere and he must be very capable. Exactly the same thing we are talking about when it comes to a guru, a man of enlightenment who's sharing with total devotion and complete sincerity.
Ram Das is the name given Richard Alpert by his guru whom he met in India in 1967. Richard Alpert is the name given to the child who would grow up to become a professor of psychology at Harvard University and a pioneering experimenter with Timothy Leary in the psychological effects of LSD during the 60s. Today, Ram Dass speaks and writes on the benefits and techniques of attaining higher levels of consciousness.
It's good to get the family together. I think that the spiritual trip at this moment is not necessarily a cave in the Himalayas, but it's in relation to the technology that's existing. It's relation to where we're at. It's in relation to issues like pollution and political interests and activism and stuff like that. I think that's all part of one package now. The game is to be where you are, be it honestly and as consciously as you know how. When we were all with Maharaj Ji, I decided, well, he keeps saying, tell the truth and don't get angry. But the truth is, I am angry. And I've spent so long being phony, like I love everyone. See, all the time my heart is full of anger. See? Oh, you're on this. Oh, yes, I love you. And all the time I'm thinking, I wish so. And that hypocrisy was driving me up the walls. See? And I thought, gee, he said to tell the truth. I think for a change, I'll tell the truth. So people would come into my room, and I would say, get the hell out of this room, you lazy. You're too nice. You nauseate me. So I cut up a piece of apple into many pieces, and I went around and I looked each person into the eye. And I couldn't feed them the piece of apple until I was free of the anger, because to give somebody food with anger is like giving them poison, because the vibration gets transmitted. It's the opposite of healing, if you will. And I could feel that the thing that was between me and them at this point was my pride. The only game in town is the game of being, which includes both high and low. Every time you push anything away, it's still there. The pile under the rug gets very big, you know. So it gets so that your downs are actually far out without being masochistic. Your downs turn out to be more interesting than your highs after a while, because they're showing you where you aren't. Like I get into a depression, see? Or like I got angry tonight. I was fascinated by that. Far out. Look at how I came in being a holy man. I lost my cool. Far out. Isn't that great? I don't have any sense of social responsibility. I'm not trying to do good. I'm just doing my gig. If I were a bus driver, I'd be driving a bus, and I speak, so I speak. It's my thing. Everybody has their part in the drama, and no part is any better than any other part. They're just parts in the drama. Now, the issue of love, it's important that the distinction be made between the verb love, which takes an object, and the being, the state of being, which is love. You're afraid that if you don't try to be loving, you'll be awful. But the fact is that behind loving and awfulness, we are. And where we are is love.
It was up some laughing river where I'd gone to spend a day. I had such fantastic visions I could hardly stand to stay. And I stood up within myself and suddenly felt free. And I stood above the burdens that puzzle you and me.
I've never really felt the need for a guru. I guess because anytime I needed to know something, to find out something about myself, or how to understand what's happening inside of me, I've always had a friend. Someone I could trust, someone who understood me, someone that had defined their terms with me so that I could understand what they were saying. We lose the importance of why we're here by not defining our terms to one another, by misunderstanding and not really caring enough to find out what it was we misunderstood.
Finding came awareness that was shared with all around. With the sky, the trees, the flowers, and the wind, the sun, the ground. I heard the birds were singing, and I found them same as me. And I understood our sorrows, and why they should not be.
If there was ever anything I really wanted people to do, I suppose it was to seek to understand one another now. Don't wait and don't say, well, I've got time, because we don't. The time we're living in right now was someone else's eternity. And our eternity will be someone else's lifetime.
Altered states of consciousness are not necessarily higher states of consciousness. Nevertheless, for many, the psychedelic trip has been the first real evidence that there is more to the world around us than what we so confidently call reality.
On acid, I was actually able to experience that what I really was the entire cosmos and all the energy that makes up the cosmos. And after taking acid, I was able to learn that you could have that experience through meditation. By constant practice, the drugs were necessary. Drugs are debilitating and exhausting, and meditation is a lift up and refreshing.
What I notice is that the psychedelic trip is an astral analog of the thing itself. And as such, it can strengthen faith. But once you know where high is, then you start to work.
What is true love?
अपना अहम भाव कैसे बढ़ा जाता है?
सोहम भाव आ जाने से परमात्मा के विषय में अहम भाव चले जाते हैं.
True love, is that love or that peace which rushes in the heart without any outer stimulus.
जीवन का उद्देश्य अंतरात्मा को जानने का, दिल खुशी से जीने का, यही शत्रु महारूपो महाभावो.
In order to love oneself, one should meditate and turn within. And if you want to love others, turn without and keep rubbing against each other.
I was standing in line in Chicago to go to a pornographic movie. And I I had $5 in my hand, and I was in line talking to the man in front of me about pornographic movies. Now, crossing through somebody's mind is, why did he want to go to a pornographic movie? And I could give you any number of answers, all of which are just answers. I don't know. I was just doing it. So I was standing there, and a boy came down the street with long hair and big soft eyes. Okay? And he came walking down the street very gently, very beautifully, and he looked at me. And he stopped, and he said, "Baba Ramdas?" And I find myself palming my $5. At which point, the following thing happens. The line moves forward. See? Okay. Now, I'm the last person in the line, so I have a choice. I could continue to talk to this guy as if he just happened to catch me as I was standing there. Or I can move up in the line, see? In which case I'm going to move by him at an oblique angle, which is going to lead him to, you know. So I moved up in the line. I could have stood there and then said goodbye, walked around the block, and come back, but that crossed my mind, I want you to know. But I moved up in the line, at which point he turned slowly, realized it was a line, looked up at the marquee, saw X, 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 and, you know. And his eyes were like a pinball, a one-armed bandit, you know. The teachings are everywhere, I'll tell you.
You've just begun for to awaken. Do walk, don't run. You're not forsaken. No one can see you when you're on your own. No one can be you. Take your time, don't hurry. It's alright, don't worry. Take your time, don't hurry. It's alright, don't worry. Take your time, don't
I suppose the real question is whether there is something that, at least in history, we've identified as the guru or the teacher or the perfect one. We seem to sense from, like, religions especially, that there was a Christ, there was a Buddha, there was a Krishna, there was a Moses, there was from time to time a human being who came who seemed so fully aware of life themselves, who they were, that they were actually able to impart an experience to another human being that just would transform that human being's life, you know, bring about a complete breakthrough in their own consciousness and understanding. The thing is that there are many gurus in the world, but it's not what you believe or whether you have any faith or whether you get high by his words, but whether or not he can actually show you that light inside yourself that's keeping you alive. To me, that's really the test of a guru. And we're more and more believing that an actual physical or biological change takes place while experiencing this pure energy inside ourselves. That there's actually a gland in the top of the brain called the pineal gland, and that this gland is a light receptor. And when we turn to the energy inside ourselves, which is light, it activates a gland that right now in the human body is not active. And this gland in turn secretes chemicals that lead to a whole harmonization of the physical body. So the glands that ordinarily secrete chemicals that lead to the fear and outrage and anger are actually brought under control. If we could establish that a biological change of the human race was taking place, I mean, what a joyous thing that would be for humanity to hear, that there was a way to come out of our egos and actually experience our unity. And I think maybe it may be science that will actually help America open itself up to this possibility. Thousands of people are convinced from actual experiences that they have found the answer, that they have experienced a breakthrough in consciousness that is perhaps one of the most dramatic and exciting changes in the history of civilization. And we begin to ask ourselves whether or not the whole 60s wasn't just a preparation for a breakthrough in human consciousness to make possible a world where we could live together, using the technology and using the vast resources that humanity has put at its fingertips. We get very excited as we begin to see that this is what is happening. With all the stuff coming down, with the economies falling apart, we begin to ask ourselves, is it just possible that the global crisis is actually contributing to the breakthrough of human consciousness? That the global crisis actually plays a role in helping the whole human race come through one of the most exciting and beautiful and magnificent changes in all of civilization.
Seeing his light a signal across the heads of the throng, hearing his faintest whisper above Earth's loudest song. I'm hearing his faintest whisper above Earth's loudest song. By his grace, by his grace, at the feet of the Master, well, you can really let it go, let it flow, 'cause we're all lost.